I'm going to try and keep this one relatively brief because I think I've already covered this story a lot. Um, the BBC has apologised to Trump. Apparently, that's not good enough. Now, I initially thought that he had said an apology or I will sue. But it seems what he really means is an apology and I will sue. And I will demand compensation. And he's upped it from 1 billion to 5 billion, as if Donald Trump needs any more money. Firstly, I would be surprised if he sees a single cent, um, because there's very little legal ground actually for him to sue the BBC on. They've done what he asked them to do, which is apologise. Even that, some people would say, was not necessary because the BBC didn't actually change his words. They edited his speech, which they shouldn't have done, but they didn't actually change his words. And the fact of the matter is, the US House of Representatives found that he was guilty of inciting the violence. Donald Trump is a convicted criminal. Donald Trump did pardon the violent insurrectionists. Donald Trump did refuse to concede defeat. Those are all facts. So it shows the extreme narcissism and arrogance and bullying of the White House under this president. Just this litigious obsession. I don't think it would. I'm not a legal expert, but I can't see how this would hold up in either a British or American court because it's a British broadcast. And so it wasn't even put exclusively on an American network. As for harm to his reputation, because that I would assume would be the legal framework for such a massive compensation, that it caused considerable damage to his reputation. For the last 4 years, everyone knows Donald Trump has incited that violence. So the fact the BBC edited one report on it hardly makes a difference to Donald Trump's bad image. I just think he's got no ground to go on. But the real issue here is about the British side. Will Keir Starmer stand up to him? Because so far Starmer's approach to Trump has been caution, 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 caution. He needs to stick his neck out and say, no matter how uncomfortable it is, he needs to say, no, Mr. President, you're not going to get any money from the BBC. This is our state broadcaster. They've already apologised. The matter should be over. Now, can Starmer do that? This is just typical of a president who just bullies his way around and thinks he can always get things his own way. The facts speak for themselves. Everything I said is empirically true. I want to speak a little bit, though, about Trump's apologists in the UK, because unfortunately we do have them. I think they're a minority, but I think they're a vocal minority. One such person is Stephen Yaxley and Tommy Robinson, who is, praising Trump online on X and saying, how much he supports Trump's efforts to destroy the BBC effectively. I question how patriotic it is for someone to be cheering a foreign leader trying to destroy a British institution. The purpose of this video, I'm not trying to convince anyone to love the BBC or, to even agree with me that the claims are there's a lot of distortion around how this is being reported. I'm not even asking that, but I would say this: if you are British and you're going out of your way to defend Trump, I think you're acting as useful idiots. And quite frankly, I think that there is not much difference between that and parroting the propaganda of the Kremlin or the Chinese regime. Trump is a foreign leader. It might be an allied nation, but everything Trump does is for Trump, and it's just, I think that we need to see this for what it is. Some people are gloating about this. Some people would dearly love to see the end of the BBC. I won't. And someone like Nigel Farage, it's ironic. They talk about BBC bias, yet there's arguably disproportionate coverage of reform, considering they are technically a small party. They've got, 5 MPs? Yet the number of times they've appeared on Question Time, representatives from Reform, the amount of coverage they get, it's far, far too disproportionate compared to, for example, the Liberal Democrats, who are a much bigger party. 72 MPs compared to 5 MPs. There's just no comparison. So that's why some would argue this notion that the BBC's got left-wing bias, doesn't entirely stack up. But even if it were true, it's absolutely not the business of Donald Trump or his press secretary to be telling British people what they should and shouldn't watch. I just don't have any respect for Britons who go out of the way to defend Donald Trump and who will actually be so stupid that they will say, we want Donald Trump to be leader in this country. They would sell this country to Donald Trump. No, I appreciate... I'm not going to convert people around to how I see Donald Trump. I can't stand the man. I think he represents... I think the MAGA movement is poisonous. I think it is absolutely... Its base is lies. So many lies. Lie after lie after lie after lie. So the fact the BBC messed up with this particular panorama report, it does not vindicate Trump. And at the risk of just repeating what I said in the last video, it doesn't. But I do not understand people who think it's patriotic to cheer for a foreign leader at the detriment of a British institution. No matter what you think of that institution, for all the flaws it has, it is the British state broadcaster. So if you're parroting Trump, if you're saying, oh, I hope he sues them into destruction, what does that say about you? It's not patriotic. Kimmy Badenoch took a more measured approach. She says she wants the BBC to be saved from itself, but she doesn't want to see it gone. That's a bit better than some of the right-wingers out there, but I still feel there is a concerted effort of jumping on the bandwagon here. And what is galling is the hypocrisy, because a lot of the right-wing editors who are attacking the BBC, they cherry-pick news to suit their own agenda. Do people seriously think that the editors of the Daily Mail, the Daily Telegraph, the Sun, the Express, etc. don't fiddle with the news to suit their own agenda, to highlight a particular part of a story and then minimise another part of that? Do people think they don't do that? So I'm not saying the BBC is perfect or should be above scrutiny, but when I see the American demagogue, arrogantly demanding $5 billion, it isn't going to happen. But I think it's more than the BBC just refusing that. I think the government needs to speak up now and tell Trump to back off. Because for too long, there's been this idea that the way to placate this bully is just give him what he wants. I don't think that's good enough. Truth social equals lies central. And Trump and his entourage continue to get away with their lies over and over and over again. I said half-jokingly the BBC should sue Caroline Levitt for her false claim that the BBC is 100% fake news. It isn't. And for her arrogant calls for British viewers to watch GB News. That's none of her damn business. She was also whining about having to watch the BBC when she's in British hotels. No one's forcing her to. She can switch over the channel. The sheer arrogance of these MAGA people is infuriating. They think it's making America stronger again. All it's doing is creating more resentment towards the United States. And the irony of this is that resentment is building in America's traditional allies like the UK. Make no mistake, Donald Trump is not popular in this country, but I think that what we're seeing is his useful idiots are vocal. They're very vocal about it. And it's no coincidence that a lot of them are Reform voters. Now, I'm not going to attack every member of Reform. I'm not attacking everyone who supports Reform. But the fact of the matter is the people who tend to come out with this do tend to be Reform voters. Supporters is just a reality. Not everyone, but there's a trajectory to that end, and that's telling. How patriotic is it for Nigel Farage to go to Washington and run down this country, say this country is broken? If he wants to say that, say it in the UK. Don't go to another country and say that. That to me is deeply unpatriotic. So Trump's not going to get a single cent that he's demanding. If the BBC does pay anything, I think that would be a travesty, and I think they would be dead wrong to do it. They should absolutely, put their foot down and say not a chance in hell. It won't happen anyway. There'll be no legal mandate for them to do so. But the real question is, what's the government going to do? Is the government going to show some backbone and stand up for our national broadcaster, or are they going to just pander to Trump? Because it would be a serious mistake if they do. And Kimmy Badenoch, she should not be pandering to this either. If she says the BBC should pay up, then she'll be absolutely on the wrong side of this. I don't know if she's made any statement to the latest developments. But, there are other things going on in the world. And many, including many American viewers of this story, have pointed out that this is yet another useful distraction for Trump and the Epstein connection. It's just another distraction. So to hell with Donald Trump, to hell with his demands, and to hell with MAGA's arrogance. And as for, British citizens who cheer for Trump, as far as I'm concerned, you're useful idiots. This is not a patriotic thing to do. Dislike the BBC all you want, criticise the BBC all you want, but at least don't cheer for a foreign leader in this to this end, because it is not helping this country. It's not helping. It's just not a patriotic position to take.